What's up, guys? It's Erica with Not Your Average EDC. Nugget, what are you doing here? This is a little nugget right here. Get out. Guys, how's it going? Are you having a good day? We have a long review to do on the Bugout. So I hope that you have a drink, a snack, a blankie, all of your comfort things, because you're going to be sitting, you're going to be listening for a long time about the Benchmade Bugout. So, this is the full review. If you've never been to my channel, my reviews are only done after I consecutively run a knife for an entire month in my pocket, using it for, 30 days straight, or in this case, 28, because February is a short boy. So, my tests are done for a month. The reviews are done after that. You will never find a review on my channel unless I have used something consecutively for 30 days. I have done a lot of videos, really, on my idea behind that. But this knife right here is a basically fully customized Benchmade Bugout that I ran for the entire month of February, and we are going to talk about the whole thing and do a full review on it right now. Kind of the main point of this review will be the scales, because I was purposely testing those for Applied Weapons Tech. However, I can do a full review of the Bugout in general because I ran it for a month. So, to start off, these scales were sent to me by Applied Weapons Tech. I did not pay for them. I have worked with Applied Weapons Tech for a very long time. It's one of the few companies that I enjoy working with. I get emails and DMs multiple times a week asking if I want to work with companies like, Urban EDC Supply and stuff like that. This is one of the only companies that I've actually been interested in working with. Now, I don't make money from them or anything like that. They will just send me prototypes of their new products to test, because I beat the shit out of them and they want to know if they're going to break or not. So, didn't pay for these, and these are a prototype, so they're available right now. A ton of people have been buying them, and the only difference between mine and the ones on the market are that the ones on the market, I believe, are drilled on both sides so that you can flip the clip around, and mine is only done for right-hand carry. If you carry left-handed, you're possessed by Satan. So, let's get into it. This knife, the Bugout in general, is one of the best EDC knives I've ever encountered. It is my second favorite borderline hard use work EDC knife ever. My first one is the Emerson Mini A100, but the Bugout is second. And this is a knife that, in theory, should work for everyone, especially because they make a mini version. But the regular size version, I feel, will work for, 85% of people. And this blade shape is basically the best for EDC I could ever ask for. We have a drop point blade, a thin, slicey, but durable geometry. So that's really a huge plus, because a lot of people don't have time to sharpen, every couple days when using their knives, or they just don't know how to sharpen. And this is a knife where, if you're lazy, or if you don't know how to sharpen, or you're learning, etc., this knife will continue cutting for you even when it's dull, because geometry cuts. So this is very thin, very slicey, very capable, and it will just kind of go through any material you need it to, even when it loses that edge. This one is in CPM M4. I'm not sure if that's going to pick up, but this is in Cerakoted CPM M4. This is not the stock steel that you would get from Benchmade. So if you were to get a normal Bugout in the plastic scales, FRN, whatever you want to call them, it would come in S30V as your baseline steel. And then depending on where you get it from, if it's an exclusive, or if you get it from the custom shop, the Dogs are so crazy. Depending on if you get it from the custom shop, you can get, 20 CV or M4, what have you, S90V. But this one was in M4, so we were also able to test Benchmade's M4, which I haven't really been able to fully test. The Cerakote on this held up absolutely incredible. So they must have used some different type of Cerakote for this, because when I tested the Benchmade Cerakote over the summer on the Mini Adamas, it was not really that impressive. However, this Cerakote feels different. It feels more Teflon-like, and it also just performed much differently. Because we don't really have good lighting, you can't tell, but it's almost sparkly. I wonder if I can let some sun in here to show it, but I don't think so. Oh, hello, God. So the Cerakote is way more impressive than the Cerakote that I've used previously from Benchmade. We have a crazy toothy edge that I think it came maybe a little bit burnt. It wasn't... When I was using the stock edge, it was toothy, it was great, and it lasted a long time, but I could tell it was getting a little bit chippy, a little bit brittle. It came a little bit brittle. Now, that's not to say that it broke and was destroyed and shit. It just, I could tell it came to me fatigued. So once I used the edge until it wasn't really cutting paper very well anymore, I did sharpen it, I put a nice toothy edge on it, and this thing is a shredder. Now, that fresh edge is performing much better than the factory edge. However, I only had to put that one edge on it the entire time I tested this. So for 28 days of borderline hard use, I only had to sharpen it once. That's extremely impressive. Also, I have a Benchmade mini grip in M4 from at least 5 years ago. And that M4 was trash in comparison to this. Now, they're both from Benchmade, and I don't know what that speaks for in terms of Benchmade, but their old M4 was super chippy, super brittle, very hard to sharpen. And when you got it sharp, it was good, but it was not the quality of this. It could have been a one-off, who knows? It was from the custom shop, so I'd be kind of surprised. But this M4 is very, very different. It's much higher quality, and sharpening it was creating a burr evenly. It felt really good on the stones. It didn't take too long to sharpen, which M4 can kind of be a bitch, but this was really nice. And that blade shape did not give out on me once. It was not too thin. It was not too delicate. I have said in the past, before testing the Bugout, that I was really nervous about how thin that tip was. I was completely wrong. It is beyond capable. Didn't ever have a single issue with it. The scales on the stock Bugout they're good. I love FRN scales, I love Grivery, but I did notice that the knife felt a little squarish. It kind of feels like it's, just a rectangle, and just this knife has the potential to be the best EDC knife ever, and I just feel like they nailed the blade when this came out, and then the scales left us wanting a little bit more, right? We wanted a little bit more. We didn't want plastic. I wanted plastic. Most of you didn't. And there was something off about them, right? So every company under the sun started creating aftermarket scales. And I've used a lot of them for the Bugout. I've used rock scale titanium ones. I've used Flytanium G10. I've used the Death Grip G10, which are really nice. I want to say I've used a couple others, but I can't recall off the top of my head what brands they were. So everyone comes out with the aftermarket scales, right? And even if you get the best of the best, like the Death Grip scales, these are more rounded on the edges. However, it is still that same stock shape of being kind of rectangle, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with this. This is fabulous. These scales are incredible. They are, like I said, the best of the best. Ryan does the best CNC machine work that I know of. Like, he's just a one-man band type of thing. So speaking in terms of that, he does the best that I've ever used, and I've used a ton of his scales. But again, maybe you want it to be a little more rigid feeling, right? A little more contoured. Like, you can do better than the rectangle square scales. So, Applied Weapons Tech, the geniuses, the innovators that they are, decided that they were going to evolve the Bugout into the best version of itself that it could be. And that's when we have the Applied Weapons Tech Archen scales come out. Now, these don't look incredibly different at first glance. However, let's pull the stock version up and just talk a little bit about the scales. So, if you can see, the stock plastic version, line these up, Erica. Why are you like this? Why are you so shaky? Okay. So the stock ones are a hair shorter. Just a hair, right? And they're also shaped differently. So up here, it's just kind of like a round off. On this, we have some angling. Now, does that affect anything? No, it doesn't. It just looks cool. It just looks different. We have jimping up at the top. Kind of the same as on the stock, but there's no actual jimping on the scales themselves. That's just the liner. But on the Applied Weapons Tech, we actually have their own jimping paired with the jimping from the liner. Then, as we move down the knife, we have some contours, some angling, some chamfering on the scales, just to make them a little more ergonomic, but not too ergonomic, right? We don't want them to be too crazy. And then the sweet spot, the intelligence, the absolute genius comes in at the butt of the knife, because who doesn't love a good booty in any type of sense? Fabulous. So what they did was they started rounding off the butt right here. It starts to dip, right? And then we have this rounded, really nice actual end. And that is what changes the game when you are deploying this knife and closing it, which makes it absolutely 100% better than any scales I've ever used, and it makes the Bugout superior to basically anything. So something as simple as rounding this off makes it so that when you put this knife into your hand to deploy the blade, your fingers fall on the clip. It locks that contoured area into the meat of your palm, and you are able to fully secure that to open and close it. Now, that might not seem like an important thing, but you're not going to fucking use the knife if it's not open. And when you are able to create muscle memory without even thinking, without even noticing that you're doing it, because this just melts naturally into your hand, that is a beautiful thing, as Nick Shabazz would say. I don't watch him, but I've heard that he says things like that. That is a beautiful thing, guys. It just locks in. And when you're opening and closing it, it is so tucked in there perfectly. It's like, it just feels like it was made for your hand. And the best part is, I don't have big hands. Like, for a female, maybe they're a little on the larger side. But the good thing about this is, as long as this knife in general is your size, you should be able to flip it into your palm and work with it no matter what. Now, if your hands are tiny, you should just be getting the mini version of this. Like, they make mini versions of these scales for the mini Bugout. But it's so universal because as long as your fingers are long enough, this being contoured at the end just melts into any hand, right? It'll just melt into any hand because it just dips down and it just disappears. It's so great. Like, this tiny little change just makes the Bugout feel much better. So I've mentioned before, this feels more Sebenza-like to me now. It is very, rigid, strong. Obviously, you're not getting any flex with the aluminum. You still have the flow-through construction with the standoffs. Super easy to clean. The scales are not milled out for the weight reduction, which I actually like. They're just completely flat on the inside, so you're not sacrificing any type of heft. Like, it's not heavy, but you feel it in your hand, and it feels good. It feels like you are not holding a plastic toy like this anymore. Or even with the G10, they're still too light, and it kind of feels toyish, featherweight. So these scales are a game changer. I'm sorry that the dogs are so loud. It's just like any type of any noise, and they're just like gone. Hey! So these scales really are genius. I almost want to call them necessary for the Bugout, because I feel like a lot of people buy the Bugout, they don't understand the hype, and then they sell it. Now, if you had these, you might get it. And I have mentioned before, I think it was just misnamed. Like the Bugout, when I think Bugout bag, I think worst case scenario. I'm thinking a bag stuffed with everything that you need to survive outside of your home for, maybe a couple weeks, right? Or in the wilderness or something. Shit hits the fan, and you need reliable tools to last you until civilization is normal again. That's what I think when I think Bugout. I wouldn't rely on this as it is for jack fucking shit. That's where we went wrong. You call this the Bugout, and as it is, I just wouldn't rely on it in a survival situation or in a Bugout situation at all, because for normal use, the plastic scales are fine, but like, God forbid something actually happens. Yeah, they do flex, and yeah, they could. I have broken like the very corner off of the plastic ones before with not very much force. So just like, I just think it was misnamed, and I really do think that this has the potential to be the ultimate EDC knife, and all you have to do is just change over to sturdier scales like this. Now this I would call hard use. I mean, I carried it for a month, I beat the shit out of it, and it didn't fail. And I just feel like with a sturdier cage on those springs, I'm talking about the scale, so this creates a cage for these springs, right? With a more reliable cage for that little animal in there, you can't go wrong, and now this is superior. Now this is better. Now this is the ultimate. You have the best blade shape on the frickin' market. So thin and slicey. Geometry is fantastic. Easy to sharpen because you don't have any recurve. You don't have any Tanto crazy stuff. It's just the easiest blade shape that you could think of. Contoured scales right where you need them contoured. The texturing on these are, it's not too aggressive, but it does create grip. I use this knife a lot in like moist circumstances, lots of produce cutting and fruits and veggies and plants, etc. Didn't lose my grip ever. The Cerakote for a month of carry, I think it held up great. I purposely had it riding up against other tools in my pocket to wear that Cerakote off to see how rugged it was. And obviously we have some wear on the little corners and protruding areas, but for a month of just rubbing up against my other tools from dawn to dusk every single day, that's really not too bad, right? You can still see that it's flat, dark earth colored. And that, I think that's great. I think that I'm satisfied with the Cerakote work. All in all, guys, this is an incredible knife. The Bugout is so above and beyond a lot of things that are on the market for the price point. Do we have to be rude? Hey! Do we have to? Please? It is superior to most things on the market. I think you just have to get different scales. Now, I'm not saying you have to buy these ones that I'm talking about. However, out of all the scales I've used, these are 100% the best. Just a few side notes to mention that aren't... Hey! Dear God, I am so sorry. Like, my life is so chaotic. Okay, just a few side notes to mention that, it's kind of like icing on the cake here. Number one, I have used a lot of Applied Weapons Tech scales on numerous different models. I've probably had like 5 or 6 sets come through my hands where I've done rebuilds for knives, and every single time that the knife was originally off center in its old scales, it centered up in the Applied Weapons Tech scales. So I think that's something to note. They're very high quality, they're machined perfectly, and every single time that a knife has been wonky, it's straightened right out in the scales from this company. Scales other than these exact ones. I've used the mini grip ones and stuff too. Number 2, I did use the stock Benchmade clip for the first week, maybe week and a half, before I switched to the Lynch clip, and the stock clip was fabulous, had great retention and purchase in the pocket, never slid out or anything, and it looked incredible, and I had enough room up here with the stock one to pull the knife out of my pocket. When I switched to the Lynch clip, I noticed, again, a great thing. It doesn't seem to be poking out as much as when you put a Lynch clip on the other scales. So, can you see? Okay, right? So you can see it a little bit, but not too much. It's definitely deep carry, but we're not too off there. Installed perfectly, looks great, right? And then when you have a Lynch clip on other Bugout scales, they just tend to kind of show a little more, right? So you can see the clip a little bit more than on the other model. I don't like when you can see the clip that much. I don't really like that. I like when it's a little more subdued. So this is just kind of poking out all over the place. Yeah, look at that, right? You might like that. You might like crazy deep carry. I just don't. I'd rather have it a little more tucked in. So that's another thing that I noticed that was just a little thing, but I really enjoyed. The only thing that I'm not the biggest fan of with these scales is the fact that they only machined 2 screw holes in for the pocket clip. Because the original Bugout comes with a Bugout clip that only uses 2 screws, so they machined 2 screw holes into these. However, if you want to use a stock clip or a clip that uses 3 screws, like a Lynch clip, you're only putting 2 screws in. Now that doesn't matter at all if you use something like this where you don't even notice. But when I had the OG clip in here, the original clip, it looked a little silly with just 2 screws when it had 3 screw holes and there was nothing covering the screw holes. Because the original clip doesn't have this bend. It doesn't have this bend over. It's just straight clip. And it looked a little silly with just 2 eyeballs looking all the time when it should have had 3 eyeballs. So just something to note. All in all, they're fabulous, guys. And the Bugout is fabulous. Really rugged, very dependable, durable. I did use the butt end as a hammer a few times just for testing purposes. Didn't dent the aluminum at all. Didn't do anything. These are rugged. These are very rugged. I can recommend them. I love them. Please check out Applied Weapons Technology. They are a family-owned business in Texas. They have a ton... Hey! Hey! That was supposed to be a whistle. They're out of Texas. Really good people. Honestly, for what they're selling, great prices. I believe you have, like, maybe 8 or 10 Cerakote colors to choose from for your scales. Like I said, they have them for the mini Bugout as well. I suggest you try them. I suggest you test them out. I'm not getting paid to say this. I just really like them, and I really like the scales. This is a seriously incredible knife now because of the scales. So, all in all, I recommend the Bugout. I recommend the scales. I recommend throwing a deep carry clip on there. I love it all. As always, guys, please go use your shit. I am so cold that I can't actually feel my fingies anymore. So I'm gonna stop the video now because I need to go warm up and I'm shaking. But I love you guys. I will see you on the next video. Go use your shit. Love you.